Cast. We are live here on Tuesday evening, and I'm very excited to talk about RV trade ins once again because I think there's a little bit of confusion from the full length video I did. So I decided I'm going to do this live. I'm going to go over the 5 biggest mistakes that RV owners do when they're trading in their unit or thinking about selling their unit. Now, I'm going to tell you at the end of the day, this will probably piss a lot of people off. It's not meant to, but it's kind of the way it is. Give me 1 second. Sorry, I'm in my thermals, but this is bugging me. Okay, better. All right, now the first thing we're going to talk about when it comes to trade-ins is that you look at what people are listing an RV of your same year, make, and similar models. This is a huge, huge mistake in evaluating a possible value, both wholesale and retail, for anything from a travel trailer to a toy hauler to a fifth wheel motorhome, etc. So why is it a mistake? So you get all kind of get going and say, okay, I'm gonna look at my Winnebago Vista 29V. It's a 2015. All the motorhomes I see are listed for $90,000 online. Now, that does not mean that that motorhome is selling for $90,000. So what it is being listed for, or what units similar are being listed for, is not what the actual motorhome or toy hauler or travel trailer is realistically selling to a consumer for. Now, I'll give you a great example of both sides of this, okay? So this was a few years ago, and you have to know what this product is. So in 2017, I had a trade-in. It was a Chinook motorhome. Now, the wholesale book on that motorhome was, I think if I remember right, about 20 grand. And when you looked online, folks were trying to sell that motorhome for $65,000, $70,000. Well, the retail book on that motorhome was 29 grand. But if you go look at a Chinook and you go look at what people were evaluating those things were, they were not taking into consideration what a bank would lend on it. They were basing it off of a Fugazi. But there's a but. The but in that instance is we took it in trade for retail book, 29 grand. And we turned around and sold it for $34,000. So we made, after safety, smog, all that stuff, we made about $2,600. Wasn't a lot of money, wasn't a big profit maker. What I got was annihilated by the Chinook community saying I was cheap selling that product, didn't know what I was getting myself. But if you go look at the advertisements of all their Chinooks that they were trying to sell, their Chinook motorhomes have been online for 6 months, 7 months, 8 months on the market, which means nobody was willing to pay the list price. Hi, Christy. So to look at what a RV is listed for is complete mental, we'll say it's not mentally healthy. On the opposite end of the spectrum, I have had instances where people have had some unique travel trailers that they're selling for listing them for 7, 8 grand, and they're really worth $25,000 to $30,000 on the open market. There's a lot of things like old classic Airstreams, Continental travel trailers. There's Terry, old Mallards, old Beaver motorhomes, diesel pusher Beavers. There are certain like Beaver motorhomes that guys will list for 50 grand, and they're worth probably closer to 100 because they got the right 600 horsepower motor, the right transmission package, but the person doesn't understand what they have. So stop looking at the list price of what other people are trying to sell their unit for online to get a value. The second biggest mistake that we're going to talk about is J.D. Power. J.D. Power is not the end-all be-all of retail. What happens is people go on J.D. Power, which used to be the NADA guide, and they start adding every single option. Oh my God, my travel trailer books for $47,000. I only pay $32,000. I'm going to list mine for $35,000 because that's a deal. Yeah, well, again, that's an example. That Monaco is a good example. So that J.D. Power is not the end-all be-all of any kind of evaluation. To be quite frank with you, that whole J.D. Power retail book is just a place for J.D. Power to make ad revenue, because all there is a bunch of advertisements on there. A lot how Carfax and KBB.org have become mostly a place for people to put ads for cars and RV dealerships. It's a money generator. It's not a truth teller. Not one bit. When you have access to the wholesale book through J.D. Power, which you have to pay a subscription for, and you have to be a dealer for, or a bank, what ends up happening is you start to see that the retail book that is free on J.D. Power is actually hurtful to the RV industry and the RV community, because now people evaluate their trade-in incorrectly. Here's a great example of this. I'm going to go high-low. So I have a friend of mine that's selling a 2019 Allegro bus, big old diesel bus. He paid $397,000 for that motorhome. He right now, because he clicked every option on J.D. Power, has it listed for $434,000. So he believes, because J.D. Power gave him a book out retail-wise of more money than he paid for the Allegro bus, that somebody will step up and pay for that. Now, 4 months of listing on RV Trader, he has received 0 phone calls. 0. Big goose egg. I've also run into a situation with someone that had a 2001 American Coach. That was a Fleetwood product. And when they clicked every single book, it didn't have all the options that American Coach actually offered on that motorhome. It didn't have all the packages. So there's a case where a nice diesel pusher that was considered one of the better ones in the industry at the time has a retail book of like $27,000, when in reality it's probably closer retail worth 40. Okay, so you have to look at it. JD Power is a guideline for the consumer, and you have to don't click on every option. Just look at what average retail and low retail is, and then kind of gauge it from there. Best way to do it. Best way to gauge it. The third biggest mistake we're going to talk about in this live stream has to do, and this is probably going to piss a lot of people off, has to do with the fact that you folks ask the wrong question. The question should never be, ever should be, what is my trade worth? You're asking someone who has never seen your trade. You're asking someone that's never even tested to make sure everything works. You're asking them to blindly evaluate something when they do not have all the information. Because a car guy said that's how you negotiate a deal. The car business and the RV business are completely different and separate entities. You do not negotiate an RV like you negotiate a car. If you negotiate an RV like you negotiate a car, you're going to have a tough time getting a good deal. Now, some of you, oh, no, don't believe him. He's just a sleazy sales guy. Okay, cool. Go continue to negotiate a deal like a car. Well, I could give you a better way of doing it that actually would beat the dealer and give you a great deal without having a million back and forths and getting a number on a trade that at the end of the day doesn't really matter. Because your trade valuation doesn't matter. It really doesn't. I'm going to explain why as long as we go along with the other biggest mistakes. But your trade-in is a small piece of the puzzle. Now, when you treat it like a car is completely different. The profit margin on a used car is usually between $200 and $1,200. You're probably wondering, what? Why is it so small? Because a car dealership has to turn that car within 21 days of receiving it. The other difference in a car is when a car or a truck or an SUV gets traded in a car lot, it gets what we call floor planned. So that way the car dealership doesn't have any cash flow taken out of the bank to have that car on the lot. So that way they could do the reconditioning, if it needs tires, needs brakes, oil change, blah, 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 detail, and goes right up on the front of the line, pictures, video, social media, done. It's sold within 21 days. It's either sold within 21 days retail, or it's sold to another dealership or at the auction 21 days after they receive it. It is a turnaround business. The car business is fast. So there's also systems put in place, and I talked about this in the video that I did about it. There's systems in place to prevent car dealerships from making stupid mistakes on trades. It's a system called vAuto. vAuto, you plug in a VIN number and it pops up all the data points. What that car sells for on the retail market, what it goes for at auction, what the lenders will all basically lend on it. There's a 3-letter word called MMR. That is the true real trade value of your motor vehicle. So when you call different dealerships across 20 Western states trying to get a best trade-in value on F-150, almost everyone's around the same price. And you're haggling over $50, $100, $200, $1,000. You're haggling over this much of an entire piece of pie. So why do you negotiate a car trade up front? Because car dealerships have an addendum on their vehicles and they try to price pack and trade pack all the valuations. So I'll give you an example. Best example. If you pay full MSRP for my truck with all the addendums, I'll give you $10,000 over MMR on your trade. It's a mind fuck. That's the reason why you ask for your trade value at the beginning of a car negotiation, because then they can't pack the addendum and you work one box at a time, starting with your trade, then next with the price. That's how a car is negotiated. An RV is completely different. Doesn't matter if you're buying a fifth wheel, a motorhome, a travel trailer, Toyota. Doesn't freaking matter. Doesn't. There's no vAuto system. We don't get to know what that particular unit went for at auction. We have no clue because it's a smaller industry with fewer pieces of inventory. We have to take best guess. We have to look at an Airstream and call other guys we know in the industry that sell Airstream and go, hey, what is this Bambi flying cloud really worth? Book on it's $30,000. I've had instances where I've taken in certain motorhomes, like a Fleetwood Discovery 39S. Okay, had 18,000 miles. Book on it was 62 grand at the time I was taking a trade years ago. I called a bunch of guys I knew in the diesel business. I'm like, hey, book 62. It needs new tires. It needs this. It needs that. What do you think it's worth? I had 8 different opinions that varied from 70 grand down to 40 grand. So the dealer takes all the risk and has to fork out the cash to have that used piece on the lot. There's no instantly going from Chase to Chase, US Bank to US. It doesn't work that way. They have to fork out the cash, pay off the trade, wait until the title actually reaches them, and then they can possibly put it on a floor plan or put it on a loan. But it could be freaking 60 days before it happens. So if you pay 70 grand for the wrong motorhome as a dealership, you don't make payroll, you don't pay your bills, and you're out of fucking business. So it's completely different industry how trade-ins work, RV versus car. Very different. Your trade value doesn't matter in the overall scheme. There are 2 more important things than that. And that's the third biggest mistake. You guys have the wrong impression of how to do a trade. You guys negotiate the deal completely backwards. Okay? When it comes to an RV or a boat, there are 2 types of deals. Deal number one is you owe money on the trade and you're either upside down or you have equity. Not fake equity, real equity. Okay? So you're either upside down, even, have equity, whatever. So that's the first type of deal. The second type of deal is you have the title and you own that unit free and clear. So, how do I negotiate the best deal possible with my travel trailer trade-in, my toy hauler trade-in, my fifth wheel trade-in, okay? It doesn't start with the trade-in value and it doesn't start with the price. If you are financing the unit and you have financing on the old unit, the number one box you negotiate is down payment. Because if you don't have an agreement on down payment, it doesn't matter what your trade is worth. Doesn't matter. Your trade-in is irrelevant. Period. Okay? This is why one of the things I did, and unfortunately I don't have time like I used to. I spend hours with customers. Now it's like I got 20, 30 minutes at most. So I just get to the point anymore and just go grab a book sheet and give it to them and say, okay, get out. Because I know you're not going to buy. You're not going to buy. If you're asking me what your trade-in value is as the very first question, you're not buying your next RV. I already know. Because you're too worried about the wrong thing. And that's okay. It's not, some people, they just can't deal with it. And I understand. Okay. So what I used to do to try to guide people to the right segment is I used to use word manipulation. I would literally manipulate you into figuring out what the most important box of the deal was. Like I guided you there by retraining your thinking. And how I did that was I do this. And my managers in the RV industry hated me for this because they're like, go get a hit figure. Go beat up their trade. Get the hell out of here. That doesn't even matter. The trade doesn't even matter yet. So let's get to the real point. The real point is, hey folks, sounds like, you owe money on the trade. Yes. Hey, sounds like you might be a little upside down. No, you're not upside down. You have equity. Okay, great. Let's set this aside for a moment. How much cash down did you want to add on top of the equity of your trade-in? It sounds like you might be a little upside down, folks, in your trade. You just want to get it paid off? Oh, yeah, that'd be great. Okay, setting that aside, how much cash down did you and your family save for the new unit? So I manipulated you into figuring out which box to negotiate first. Okay? So if let's say you and your family, let's say you've got let's use a deal I heard about in Florida. Okay? And the customer was buying a Highline fifth wheel. They had a fiberglass trailer and trade. They owed 39 grand on this trailer. It's a 2021. They owed 39 grand. Wholesale book is 18.2. Okay? Now, the way I would have structured the deal, they would have been out of their trade for about 12 grand cash. No, instead the salesman didn't have enough freaking balls to actually tell the person, hey, look, you owe 39 grand on a trailer that we're selling for 42 grand brand new at this show. Yours is 5 years old. Mine's brand new. Let's talk about down payment. So in that case, if the customer said, hey, I've got 8 grand down. Beautiful. Okay, we got 8 grand down. Okay. Now we have 8 grand down. We're going to let the desk work the 8 grand first. So they're going to work the down payment trade, come up with a payment, come up with this, kind of figure out how much they need, and they're going to hit you. Let's say they hit you at 15 grand down. Okay, negotiate the down payment. Let's say you guys come to an agreement that the down payment's going to be $11,000. You're not done negotiating. They might think you are, but you're not done negotiating. Now that you have negotiated the down payment, okay, you're still not going to talk about the trade. You're going to talk about price. That's the next box. Now you're going to negotiate the price of the new unit. Remember, there's no addendums. There's no BS stuffing some kind of tire product, some kind of alarm, some kind of crap like that, like there is in the car industry. It's a straight sticker price from the manufacturer minus the dealership's discount with a selling price, and then that's what you're going to negotiate on. Now, if you have agreed and you guys have agreed to a price, you have agreed to a down payment, now the bonus is to negotiate the payment. If you can get another $10 out of them, another $5 out of them, another $7 out of them, whatever that is. And guess what you never did? You never talked about the trade value. Because the trade value, especially with most of you being buried in the unit, doesn't matter. Because if you negotiated the other 3 boxes, starting with down payment, manipulating the price, and then manipulating the payment, if you work those 3 right and they get you approved, it doesn't matter what your trade is worth. It doesn't. You need to set that thing aside. You're going to see your trade value 2 times. And it's going to make you angry both times. But you negotiate a good price on the new one. You negotiate a down payment you're comfortable with. And you've negotiated a payment that you're good with. And that is how you deal with that side of it. Now, if you own it free and clear, you have the title. Whether you're going to finance the new one or whether you're going to pay cash for the new one, there's only one thing that changes between those two. And I'll talk about that in a minute. We'll get to that. But it's the same negotiation for both sides with one caveat if you're going to finance. Okay? So, this is the best one I heard all year long so far here in 2026, which we're not that far in. Guy came in, he's got an Allegro Breeze 28 SA, if I remember correctly. He's trying to buy an Integra Vision XL 36C, which is one of my favorite floor plans, and it's $189,000 selling price. So the guy kept bugging about a trade. What's my trade worth? What's my trade worth? What's my trade worth? Finally, the third sales guy he got, which is more of an old school guy like me, went, it doesn't matter what your trade's worth. And the guy goes, yes, it does. He goes, no, it doesn't. I said, I will never be able to give you enough money for your trade to be happy. The most important thing is the difference figure, what you're willing to write a check for. So if you were to give me your motorhome and a check, whatever that check amount is that you want to pay is more important than what your trade is worth. And the guy plain simple said, I'm willing to write a $100,000 check out the door. Now, the deal was not made. They were about 20 grand apart. Out the door. But the guy still never got a trade value. And came this close to spending $20,000 extra dollars, just couldn't justify it. Now, what that guy's probably going to do is try to find the other 20 grand or look for a cheaper unit. Nothing wrong with that. Okay, now, if you keep hammering that cash difference price, oh, that's good. You got a good deal, Christy. I know you got a good deal on your Cougar. I know you got a great deal on it. But when the cash difference figure is the best way to always go about it. Now, watch this, if you're financing the difference, you don't tell the sales guy that. Not until they get into the tower. Once they're in the tower or the office or wherever the desk guy is, you then get up, you'll follow him into that office, and you just peek in your head and you say, hey, by the way, if you get to my, let's say you say 50 grand, if you get to my $50,000 cash difference out the door, I'll be financing it for 2 years. And you just walk away. Don't let them ask you questions. Don't let them say anything. If they start asking, well, where did you get that? Oh, he left. Can you go grab him? And you just look at him and go, hey, I go to the bathroom. You don't want to talk any more than that. Don't talk anymore. Let them come back with a cash difference number. That's how you negotiate an RV deal. That's how you do it with a trade. Because the best part about both scenarios, whether you're financing and you're underwater in your trade, or you're doing the cash difference trick I just taught you, the best part is if they can't come to your number, it doesn't matter what your trade's worth, and you can get up out of your seat and leave. Best parts. And that brings me to the biggest, hugest mistake everybody makes with trade-ins. And that is you guys think, because the car business trained you, that if you get up and act like you're leaving and you're going to go sit in the car and you're going to start your engine, that we're just going to come running after you. Now, desperate dealers that don't know how to make deals will chase you down. Guys like me are just going to say, bye, have a nice day. That tactic doesn't work in the RV industry. It might work in the car business. It might work in the golf cart business. It does not work with motorhomes. It does not work with travel trailers. It does not work with fifth wheels. The only time you get up and leave is if you are too far apart in a deal. If you're and too far apart can mean a lot of things. If you're working with a $10,000 cash difference price on something and they're at 7 grand, that $3,000 difference might be too far for you. You may not be able to justify, I'm doing the opposite. It might be like a $13,000 cash difference price, and that $3,000 might be too much for you to justify. That might be too far apart. 25 grand might be too far apart. There's another scenario. There may be a scenario where your down payment is exactly where you want it to be. You got a great price on the fifth wheel or the motorhome or whatever. You negotiate a great price. But by the time they got down to the payment's just too far away. You might have budgeted $1,200 and they're at $1,350. You know, that's a long way. $150 is $15,000 in a lot of cases. That's a long way. That could be a deal breaker. That's not what most people realize. $150 is 15 grand. So you're $15,000 too much money somewhere. So when you get up to leave, you're getting up to leave and not come back. You're not waiting for someone to chase you out the fucking door. You're leaving because it's just not there. It's not where the deal needs to be in the 3 quadrants we're talking about. And that goes for deals without trades as well. And one thing I will say, and this is something I try to like hone in on with folks, is don't be afraid to go the consignment route. Okay? A consignment is a free piece of inventory that doesn't cost anybody any money to try to sell. Okay? What do I mean by that? I'm working with 3 people right now at this show. One has a hybrid travel trailer that they need to get 8 grand out of it to make it make sense for them. They can't get over their trade value. They can't get over the fact that it's only worth 5 grand wholesale and maybe 6 or 7 grand retail. It's not a big profit maker. So I'm trying to convince them to consign it. I'll try to get you the 8 grand on consignment because it doesn't interrupt my cash flow. You own it free and clear. Just buy the new one. They can't get over it. I have another gentleman who possibly will consign a Chinook motorhome with us that's ordered a truck camper that's not coming for 3 months. I got another gentleman who owns a small Airstream travel trailer, and he's placed an order for a higher end travel trailer that won't be here for probably 12 weeks. So it makes it easier to put the deal on consignment because the profit margin's smaller on a consignment for the dealer, but it doesn't cost any cash flow and it doesn't cost any interest to carry it on the lot. So I know a lot of people, there are a lot of 0 fee consignments out there that are easy programs to deal with. Okay, so trying to just get trying to get the dealer to pay more than wholesale book for your RV trade is a losing battle. It's a losing battle. You're not going to win that battle. Win the battles that you can fight and win at. Price, down payment, and payment, you can win those 3 boxes. You can't win the trade. Yeah. See, Chrissy, there's stuff like that happens, right? There's stuff like that happens. And they list it for $29.9, and they'll probably sell for $27, $27.5. They're not going to make a home run on the trade. It's hard to make a home run on a trade. It's not the old days. The old days, and I was part of the old days. The old days, if I had a Winnebago motorhome of any kind and it was in good shape, we used to take the NADA guide, crumple it up, and throw it out the door because it didn't matter. Because we were going to get retail book financed. Now we don't. Now that's a rarity because lenders have really tightened up their guidelines over the last 10 years, even prior to COVID. But in the old days, If the wholesale book on a Winnebago Vista or Winnebago Journey was $100,000, we paid $105, $110, $115 wholesale. We paid more than book. If I had the right toy hauler that fit the right toys, I was paying $2,000, $3,000, $4,000 over book to have it. Those days are gone. Dealers aren't even paying book at auctions. If a dealer can't buy a unit at the auction for 80, 70, 75, 60% of book, it doesn't go and get sold. I have a Flagstaff Microlight travel trailer that wholesale book, wholesale trade-in J.D. Power is $29,500. I have it listed right now for $29,900. It's 2 years old, and they're selling brand new ones for $39,900. So how is a consumer going to pay 35 or 36 grand for a 2-year-old travel trailer when they can buy a brand 2026 for $39,900? There has to be a gap. Just talked to a dealer, acquaintance of mine that bought a Jayco Seneca 2019 Super C motorhome out of the auction. Wholesale book was $145. He paid 70 grand. And they wouldn't give it to him because the reserve was $155. And he's like, that's not worth it. He was the only bidder on the motorhome. He told me he was getting a $99.95 it. Sell for $40,000 plus back of trade-in value. You're not going to get it. I'm sorry. Christie's type of deal is very rare. So rare that I would have done the same thing she did and freaking run. Tuck tail and get my ass out of there as quick as I can. The dealer made a mistake. And they'll pay for that mistake. Yeah. And I guarantee that dealer probably won't be in business very long if they're making dumb decisions like that. You know, you just have to understand it's what Christy went through is not going to happen often. And when it does, you better take a gift horse in the mouth and run. I have some really nice used travel trailers at this show. We have not sold one. Not one. We sold orders. I've gotten several truck camper orders, some travel trailer orders. We also sold some new travel trailers on the lot at the show lot. People walk in with $15,000 and $20,000 budgets into a show. I've got it. Nobody else has it. They all look around. Oh, this is what I get for 20 grand. Oh. What's my trade worth? Oh, it's only worth $100 because my roof is collapsed. All asking the wrong questions. Oh, that makes sense. So just have that understanding that if you don't work the deal right, you will cost yourself more money in the long run. Because here's what's going to happen. Contrary to popular belief, because everybody's been saying the economy's been crashing for 4 years now. 4 years. Economy's going to crash. Everything's coming down. Deflation's going to happen. You're going to be able to buy a Ram truck for 20 cents on the dollar. You're going to be able to buy a house for pennies on the dollar. It's all going to crash. Contrary to that popular belief, your trade-in value is going to keep going down, and the price of new RVs is only going to climb and go up. So the more you wait, the more you're not going to like your trade value. Now, for you salesmen out there, especially if you're Greenpeace to the industry or you're just not a good salesperson, a consumer with a trade-in has to love the new unit that you're trying to sell them more than their trade and their money. I'm going to repeat that again. If you are trying to sell, let's say you got somebody with a travel trailer trade-in and they're upgrading to a fifth wheel, they better love that fifth wheel way more than the travel trailer they own and their money. Because if they don't, then you're never going to make a deal. Period. Because you will never give them enough money for their trade, and you'll never sell the fifth wheel cheap enough. And I've proven that a million times. Early November, I've got an Arctic Fox truck camper on the lot. Guy comes in and tells me, I'm going to offer you 40 out the door. Great, write me the check. Huh? Write me the check. You're making me an offer that's $10,000 back of invoice. I want to see the check written out. I had one guy one time, I proved to there was a guy that used to work for me. His name was Mark. Great guy. He just one of those wonderful human beings. And he was really upset because I wouldn't work a deal backwards for him. He kept telling me, oh man, if we could just get to the right number on his trade, he's going to buy this Winnebago Journey cash. I go, great. So to prove my point, and I would have gotten fired if the guy, because I would have had to sell it to the guy. But I went in with his trade. His trade had a wholesale book, a trade-in value of 22 grand, and a retail value of 30 grand. So I went in with paperwork saying I would pay $45,000 for his trade, and I was going to sell him the motorhome for $15,000 back of invoice. Guy said, oh wow, those are great numbers. Not quite what I was looking at though. I go, really? How much do you want for your trade? Well, I don't know, as much as I can get. I'm paying you 15 grand over retail book for your trade. It's not enough? I'm taking a $30,000 loss to sell you a motorhome that's been on the lot for 90 days. Here's my invoice. You want to know why the guy didn't buy? He didn't love the motorhome more than he loved his money and his trade. So that's why I sit with every sales meeting I used to do when I was a sales manager. Every Saturday morning, I would remind my sales crew, customers will not buy or trade in their RV unless they love the new unit more than their trade and their money. That's beautiful, Christy. It's beautiful. I'm going to tell you that works out every time. And let me give you an example of the positive part of that. So I had a guy that was trading in a 2001 Lance camper. Back when Lance was a really great product. And the guy, I tried to get that guy to consign or sell his camper so many times because he kept coming into the parts store when I was working at Barber RV. And he was coming in all the time, and I don't know. And I gave him, I was like trying to get it for like 8, 9 grand. And book on it was 4. So I was paying double what book was, but I knew what I was getting because it's a well-built product, and I knew I could make $2,000 or $3,000 profit and move on. No, 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 that's not enough. That's not enough. That's not enough. 1 year later, 1 year later, his wife walks in with him during one of our annual little festival shows that we did, and he found that I had this 2013 Forest River Sunseekers used. It had 22,000 miles on it, had an auto level system, full body paint. It had 2 air conditioners. It was at the very beginning of the solar craze. Had all this really interesting stuff on it. And the guy and his wife absolutely fell in love with that motorhome. In fact, they still own it to today, 13 years later. I'm sorry. Yeah. Yeah, 13 years later. Okay. And it was used. So he comes in and I just go, boss, it's been a year since I've talked to you. And I can't give you 8 grand on trade. He says, what can you give me? And I said, at most, I can give you $1,500 right now on trade because it's been over a year and it's not a consignment. And the market got really soft on campers. It's the reason why I'm not carrying anything new really right now. And he huffed and he puffed. And I said, but hey, look, here's what we'll do. He goes, what? It's going to take me 2 weeks to get the motorhome ready. You'll either bring me the cash or you bring me the trade. He goes, deal. Shook my hand. We shook on it. 2 weeks later, he came out with the camper. Couldn't sell it on his own. Okay. So his wife and him loved the motorhome more than they loved their money in the trade. At that point, the trade-in value didn't matter. It did and it didn't. Hi, Michael. So what I would tell you about your now, Michael, let's run your scenario. Do you owe money on that 2023 Keystone Passport, or do you have the title? I'm gonna run through this like I would sell it to you. Okay, so do you owe money on it, or do you have the title? We're waiting. Guys, we're just, if you're wondering why I'm silent, we're waiting for Michael Brown to answer. I know that there's sometimes a delay. So let's give him a few minutes here. "2023 Keystone Passport." That's actually a good little trailer too. That's a great little trailer. Oh. Okay, great. So sounds like from what you're saying in the comments, just in your 2 comments, okay? Sounds like you might be a little upside down in your trade. So if that's the case, let's set it aside for a moment. How much cash down do you and your family budget for a 5th wheel? Pardon me, I'm still sniffling. My allergies are killing me. Good Lord, it's like can't get away from all the dust and debris. It's okay, take your time. How much cash down did you and your family save for the new one? So, Michael, this is what I think you should do. I think you need to come up with how much down payment you want to do it. So this is, and I was talking about this at the beginning, okay? So first off, it doesn't matter if it's new or used. And actually used is harder. Used is harder because generally you need more of a percentage of down payment, okay? What I would do is I would sit back and I would figure out how much cash down am I willing to throw at this. Screw your trade value. Your trade value doesn't matter anymore. Set your trade aside, leave it on the side for a little bit, okay? What you want to do is you want to see how much down payment you're going to budget for this. That's box one. You negotiate the down payment first. No down payment. Okay, so no down payment, you're going to have a rough time getting a used fifth wheel. You would have zero chance of getting a used fifth wheel. You would have a better shot at getting a new one and working with a dealer that understands how to manipulate a trade value to get a lender to buy the deal. Now, here's the problem. Let's say that you buy a fifth wheel brand new for, let's say, $70,000. Average payment with good credit and 10% down is going to be somewhere around $650 to $700. So let's use the big number, $700. At $700, you have to tack on your passport payment on top of that in order to get that loan purchased and bought. Now, it might be better than that, but that's why I always tell people going in, right? So you don't let's just use random numbers. Let's say you owe $30,000 on your passport and its true value is $18,000. Okay? Generally, if you're buying a $100,000 fifth wheel and you put 10% down, which is 10 grand, which is normal when you're starting to work with that kind of numbers, then realistically, you're financing tax and license plus 2 grand. So if you made $40 extra payment a month on the fifth wheel, you would pay off your original passport loan within probably 10 years. So you can't go into a used fifth wheel with zero down. It's not possible. More than likely, you're going to be upside down in the travel trailer pretty significantly, especially if you put zero down on the passport. Okay, so if you put zero down on the passport trade and you bought the back end, which a lot of people do, you at least have a cancelable warranty that you could actually work with, right? So you really need down payment one way or the other. Even if you're only upside down, let's say 5 grand or 6 grand in the trade. Even if you're broke even in the trade, even if you're even Steven in the trade, you need down payment for a used fifth wheel because the lenders, including credit unions, are generally going to require it. A lot of lenders average want 15% down on a used coach. New ones, they got a little more flexibility. Used ones, tough. What's really interesting, if you really want me to blow your mind, how about someone without a trade? So I have a 2021 Sanibel on my lot that I'm selling for $35,000. Nice 38-foot fifth wheel. It's been lived in. I'm selling that fifth wheel for $5,000 back of wholesale book, and I still can't get somebody zero down. I had an 840 score, sent them through 3 credit unions, all locals. Every one of them came back wanting either 5 grand down, 6 grand down, or 7 grand down. But if I submit them over on a brand new travel trailer, they're like zero down, boom, especially with this credit score. So used is very different than new when it comes to down payment. Hopefully that kind of helped you out. Holy crap, it's almost 8:30. Ugh. Good Lord. I think I'm going to bed. Tired. I got a lot more filming to do. All right, guys. Have a good night.